culturally we're quite, the essence of our spiritual culture is not very present. And, when you lose that sense of connection, it's very easy to fall into that way of being where what's life about but the pursuit of my desire? Almost to the point where we've tried to prove to ourselves scientifically. We've almost made a very strong determination to prove that there isn't something more to life than meets the eye. Now, I think that's a great loss. And whether you can see it or not, a little part of our heart dries out when we get told that this life is just a mechanical process within which consciousness arises as a byproduct. This is a profoundly conscious universe within which this is just a display. And it's working at so many deep levels. You can't explain things by cutting it apart, breaking it down and looking at what it appears to be made of. You can't. So our connection to the sacred is so important to us existentially. And I think one of the reasons that we are feeling such a sort of quiet state of despondency is because we're looking down the line and going, well, this pursuit of my desire, gosh, where do I go with that now? I don't think I'm going to be able to have these things I want. And we've also sort of tired of that pursuit. And arising within us, and so it should, is a deep sense of we need to show more guardianship to this planet that we are by far the most dominant species upon. And that's quite right. That's a sense of moral responsibility that is starting to awaken in us, and the way that we are sort of reaching out to, and asking for some more consideration and looking for ways that we could be more considerate. That is a very important development in our awareness and consciousness. That goes some of the way to instilling in us a sense that life is sacred. Yeah. But then, beyond that, we can intellectually see, look, our impact is now detrimental and, what we do has an effect upon others. But to get to that place where we see that the suffering of others is our suffering and that we are all profoundly connected to each other, that's the point at which we really take responsibility for ourselves and feel a sense of responsibility to others, not to sort of take away their suffering, but to make sure we're not a part of it. One of the things that meditation does is to help open up that way by which we do connect to that, what should we call it? Let's just call it the sacred nature of life, because the intellectual understanding that comes to us takes us so far, but what we feel within us when we start to connect more deeply is much more profound than anything we're capable of understanding in our minds. And that process of opening back up and reclaiming consciousness that happens when we meditate is a really, really important part of that. Because, we smother our subtler and deeper impulses with the processes of our conceptual mind, to the point where we not only don't listen to them anymore, but stop being able to hear them. But your heart is always telling you what you should do, and the direction you should be going. We know somewhere inside, and when we lose that connection, that's when we lose our way. It might be a while before your depth of perception opens you up to the subtle field that is the real architecture by which all of this is expressing. The creative process behind your lives is not apparent on first, when we basically start to have a look at it. But it's through meditation, the process of, first of all, the heart starting to open, this mechanism of direct perception that allows the experience to touch us directly so that we are moved by it in the way that we ought and should and are meant to be moved by it. This is an extremely important first step. Thereafter, you've got to learn to guard that quality of your consciousness so that you can continue to be informed by it. Now that will take wise choices. We shut ourselves down to cope with what we do to ourselves. The impulse will be to allow yourself to shut down so that so it doesn't sting. Yeah? But the point is, if something stings, it's meant to, because it's telling you it's not good for you. That's your heart's way of telling you, this is not for my well-being. It is so simple. So when you lose that capacity to feel the experience that you're having, you lose that deep intelligence, or that capacity for that deep intelligence to inform you about the direction you should be going. This is not intuition. Intuition is a personal perspective. What feels right for me, for where I am right now, that's meaningful. But at a deeper level, by way of honoring what we are fundamentally and what this life is in essence, we need to learn to connect to that fundamental impulse that arises in us when we just meet the experience we're having. So this first stage of allowing your heart to open up again and feel, you now have to nurture it and honor it and give it the space that it needs. We're being asked to change, and because we're numb, we don't. Now you might feel it stinging enough to say, oof, I don't think I can do this anymore. Now that's when you change. When you reach a state of clarity and you look in upon the predicaments you face in your life, that's when the conclusions that you come to when your mind is clear and your heart is settled are the conclusions you should stand by. Don't go, okay, and then allow yourself to get smothered again and become numb, and then look again and go, you know what, I think it's all right. Because that's what tends to happen. So you've got to be brave and you've got to be courageous, you've got to be willing to change, and you've got to be willing to go against the flow. The inertia behind the momentum in which we're heading is so strong. It pulls very, very strong. It takes extraordinary tenacity and conviction to honor the direction in which your heart is pointing. And one of the greatest causes of the feeling of despondency and maybe even depression when it arises is the knowledge that I'm not moving in the direction that my heart is telling me to go. You could say that at an existential level there isn't any suffering greater than that, because somewhere in your heart you know where you want to go. And this is where establishing or re-establishing our connection to the sacred is so important. When you touch that stillness, and when that capacity to be touched by that stillness is intact, we start to develop a relationship with what lies in that stillness. And, I've suggested to you that at that moment you might start to recognize, to feel, be touched by this profound love that sits behind our lives. Now, it might be a while before you understand what that is, where's that coming from? And I don't really know whether I should even start to try and say anything about that. But being touched by it and the longing to not lose that connection to it is probably the strongest galvanizing influence you will feel to move in the right direction. It's like calling you home when you've been, wandering astray. So this is why we should honor it. When you feel touched, being touched by that is without doubt one of the most moving and profound experiences we have. Whenever it happens, in whatever way it happens, it impacts upon us profoundly. And we should let the impact that it has on us call out to us. So, while you're on the journey of developing the faculty by which you can enter really consciously into that, one of the ways to bridge the gap between your current state of consciousness where you feel moved and touched and open, but you can't clearly discern what this is through devotion. To develop a profound reverence for it and to investigate it with that attitude. And because that devotion to it puts it in a place of importance in your life. And people have put their hands together and prayed without knowing what they're praying to since the beginning of time, because it's called to us. And we've got ourselves confused, we don't know what's going on. It takes a long time before we can see what's going on here. So there are two ways, you develop your own relationship to that. I think it's okay. Don't get carried away with too many ideas, don't build a big story up. Develop your relationship to the way that you are moved when you find that place of rest within you, because that's your connection to the divine. That is a genuine connection to what is, because that feeling that moves you is there within the experience that you're having. It's not something you created in your mind. Now, we've dreamed up all kinds of, belief systems and stories and all this kind of thing, and aligned ourselves around these. And that's one thing, but you don't know what it is. The one that touches your heart directly is what is. You know you didn't make that up in your mind. And though you don't understand it yet, or may not understand it, that's the one you should honor. When your path is driven by the longing to connect to that which you're touched by, that is actually very powerful and uplifting indeed. And you don't need very much to complete that journey. You don't. You don't see people like with extraordinary, complicated lives having made that connection, entered into it, and aligned themselves to that. You don't. Their needs are very few. Because it's really what you came here for. You came here so that you could understand what you are a part of. Because having come to that understanding, it will arise in you, that for which I came here to do, I've done. And you'll be at peace with yourself. And you'll tread lightly, and you'll delight in what you're doing, and you'll show reverence to life in a way that is important. At the end of your life, you'll just have, the only one thing you'll have to say is thank you. And when we reach that state, our presence here will not be a burden. It won't. All the effort that we think we have to make to try and adjust our lives so it comes back into a state of balance, so we live appropriately, it won't be an effort. It won't be an effort. That joyfully giving up the things that just burden you won't be a sacrifice. It'll be a relief. Being told you can't have the things you want anymore feels like an imposition. But reaching the point where you genuinely do not need that stuff, letting it go is a relief. I hear it time and time again. But how do we do it? How do we do it? How do we possibly reorganize our life like that? You let go first. And then it will be obvious to you. And it will be a relief to make those choices rather than a struggle. It's a simple thing. Sit quietly when you're touched by the stillness, rest in it, be moved by it, your heart will open. That feeling of longing that now becomes a sense of relief and ease turns into a feeling of gladness, joy, and then gratitude and love. And that's how you develop your relationship to what lies in the stillness. Until maybe one day you can see it for yourself. So I don't know, you can do it your own way. I think it's best I don't say more than that. You go and discover it for yourself. But the way to discover it is not through reading texts and deciding whether you subscribe to this system or that, or creating up some complex infrastructure in your own mind, but just keep listening to your heart. Because it's in your heart that you're connected to that already. Aren't you? All right, so let's just sit quietly and connect. So feel from your heart. Whatever challenges and difficulties and obstacles life has thrown your way, let go, so that you can return to that basic ground of your being and be touched by it. So feel from your heart. And making reflection on this rare, precious human life that you have, say to yourself inside 3 times, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Know that that love that you might be starting to recognize has never for one moment wavered. For all the muddle we've got into, for all the disregard we've shown, it's never wavered for one moment. It endlessly, boundlessly embraces everything. And out of that love, everything arises. that love that you feel inside you when you touch that stillness, is the very same love that is everywhere. And when you feel it, you know you're at one with it. And your sense of isolation and separation is over. And you've completed your journey home. That's what you came here for. Nothing else. Nothing more than that. So just rest. Find that natural state of rest so that you recognize there isn't anything you need to add. Feel it, the power of it within you, when you just let it express itself through you. You only need to rest in it. There is nothing to add. So when you ask me the question about how do we get to a state of forgiveness or self-love or acceptance, self-acceptance, you recognize that your pain is only the pain of losing your connection to that. It is a great loss. And our pain and suffering is great on account of it. And it is only on account of that and the confusion that it creates within us that we do these things that we regret and don't do the things that we wish we should. There is no judgment. That love is unwavering. It's never not there, and it's never judged you for a moment. Why should you judge yourself? There's no time you've wasted or lost. There's only this moment, and it's complete within itself. And there's nothing to add. So go beyond merely accepting yourself and forgiving yourself. Love yourself profoundly, not your idea of yourself with all its vanity. Love the essence of what you are, which is the essence of every single one of us. So just let go. Trust it. Learn to rest in it. Rest your exhausted mind.